Morning, Carol. Welcome, and you've got 5 minutes with us, and so you can take the time. Take the time as you wish.
Right, I'll crack on. Thank you for giving me time. I'll get straight on. In 2020, I wrote a review about how Articles 22, A to J, sex self-ID on a birth certificate, ended up in version 2 of the BDMRR Bill. I was interested in the process used to insert these clauses, as there had been no clauses in version 1 presented to the House in late. The addition of these clauses was contested and the passage of the bill halted by the then Minister Tracy Martin. The link to the reviews in the submission. At the time, similar processes had been used to include similar legislation in Ireland. People voting yes in Ireland to marriage equality had also voted yes to gender recognition on legal documents as well, somewhat to their surprise. 5 years later, just over half the population in Ireland are in favour of allowing a person to change sex on their birth certificate, but on the condition of having undergone hormone treatment or genital surgery first. While writing the review, I also found that other significant changes related to sex self-ID had already been made in this country. Sex self-ID is now available on passports and driver's licenses. Women's non-government organisation had also somehow altered their policy in favour of sex self-ID. These changes had directly affected services at local level. For example, female-only refuges now accepted anybody who said they were a woman. Why were sex self-ID changes happening here and elsewhere in the absence of in-depth, in-public debates? I found that any conversation that queries substitution of the concept of gender identity for sex characteristics would be shut down. Shutdown worked something like this. First, you are told there is no debate, or you don't understand if you challenge the idea that gender identity is intrinsic in an individual. Secondly, if you persist, you will be accused of transphobia, and your workplace, if you have one, may be informed of your misdemeanour. Finally, if you still persist, you will be told people may be harmed. As I speak, aspects of the scenario is being played out in New Zealand and internationally over and over again, when ideas about the right to self-identify as a different sex meets the rejoinder that's just not material reality. A number of submitters have said being able to alter one's sex on a birth certificate by say-so alone is a bad idea. In England, Wales, Germany and Italy, adoption of sex self-ID on a birth certificate process has been voted down. In Norway, the sex self-ID change there has just reinforced confirmation to traditional stereotypic notions of sex gender expression, leaving some trans people very frustrated that they are unable to express themselves in a variety of gendered ways. Look, I fully support trans rights and the last speaker to be able to do what he wants to do in his life. For me, rejecting sex self-ID by say-so only is about being able to continue to safeguard vulnerable bodies whose safety is now guaranteed under the 1993 Human Rights Act. I worry about a number of things in this regard, including possible use of changed sex on a birth certificate as evidence of suitability for the young person concerned to start gender confirmation medication and surgery. Sex self-ID will not solve the problems at least some young, vulnerable people are struggling with. In particular, girls and young women with ASD, FASD and ADHD who struggle in the area of sex and intimacy. Finally, a birth certificate, a unique record of how an individual has come to be embodied, is an important biological and genetic link from our past to our future. My sister has multiple sclerosis. Being able to track the sex of our forebears through birth records, we are a migrant family, was very important in respect of a fast initial diagnosis for her. Females are 4 times more likely to have MS than males. Collapsing this document into another way of supporting how individuals wish to appear compromises the immense value of it to myself, my sister, and to our team of 5 million in respect of whānau, kinship, and genetic evidence. The majority of New Zealand public don't want this kind of change to their certificate. A majority of submitters to the committee also reject the idea. Your report needs to reflect this reality. And good, I have a minute to say I am also a member of the rainbow community myself and have been so for 50 years and would love to talk to Will about what has happened in the past. Also, thank you to the Chair for your kind attention to my correspondence prior to this oral submission.
Thank you, Carol. That's a very good submission, and thank you for taking the time to make it to us this morning. I think we'll move on to our next submitter because time's...
Can I just ask a very quick...
Oh, Deb's got a very quick question. Okay, go ahead.
No, I don't want to go hard at all. Carol, it's a very academic submission, which obviously I approve. I was going to say, have you got particular academic qualifications or what's the...
Yeah, I do. I've got a PhD. It's actually human development, but I was particularly interested in inclusive practices in the disability field for young girls and women with learning and neurological difficulties. Okay. And that's where I base myself, Deborah, in this regard.
Yeah, no, I can see it informs the submission, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Well done. And thank you for taking the time this morning.
You're
I think our next submitter is right here.